Welcome to SheepConnect SA's 10-minute talk on the benefits of eID for classing. I'm Bart Desser, part of the SheepConnect SA team, and today our speaker is Mark Ferguson of neXtgen Agri. Over to you, Mark.
Righto, eID and Ewe Selection, I guess really important topic for as we move into a stage where we're getting more and more information on our sheep. This number varies depending on where we do it, but roughly 35% of young ewes are culled before mating every year. Sometimes that might be 50% in your flock, or it might be 10% in your flock, depending on your reproductive rate. But the reality is we're making decisions about which animals we think should move into our maternal flocks, and also which animals we should remove out of our maternal flocks. And a lot of the time we're making those decisions in a bit of a dearth of information. We don't really have a lot of info, and I guess there's things that we can safeguard ourselves against making bad decisions. One of the errors of making good genetic gain one of the things that stops genetic gain is error, and one of the things we need to remove out of our selection strategy is error. And in our ram selection, we do that through using data, but in our ewe selection, we often have to find other ways to do that. I guess I'll work on the theory that if you can measure it, why would you guess? And so we're moving into an era now where the eID technology has improved a lot. We've got great tools, we've got great systems that we can measure things relatively simply and accurately. And so we're in this era where we're better equipped than we've ever been before. And I guess it's how we use those tools. In terms of what I think about in terms of measuring commercial sheep, obviously commercial farmers aren't stud people. They don't have to measure everything, but there's a few key things I think are useful to measure, and this will depend on whether you're a merino producer or a composite producer or a first class ewe breeder. But weaning weight's obviously a critical one. One of the measures of success. One of the things we do a lot is 8 to 12 month condition score. So rather than just weight, condition score that condition score will reflect how well that animal will do for the rest of its life. So it's sort of a measure of its robustness, if you like. A weight at some other point after weaning, 8 to 12 months, is something we would encourage. If it's a merino operation, and fleece weighing and micron and fibre diameter testing is encouraged, and then some pregnancy scanning. But obviously you don't get that information on young sheep. That's as they you might use that information as to whether you remove them out of your flock. But so yeah, there's a few measurables that we can do. I guess the point is you have to work out what your business objectives are in terms of what you want to measure. Like is turning off lots of lambs your important metric? So you want to be really focused on weaning weight and early growth, and fleece weight and micron is not important. Or you might be a wool producer really chasing improving those metrics. But whatever you're doing, you need to make sure we're actually trying to select on genes rather than what we can see or measure. Because at every hurdle, there's environmental impacts happening, and we often need to make sure we take them into account. These dots, I've got 3 graphs coming up, and each one of them, the dots are a group of progeny from an individual sire, and I've got the single-born progeny and the twin-born progeny pulled out, and that's in this case, it's average fleece weight. The first thing to notice there is the size clean fleece weight breeding value works, so that's correlated, and that we know that works. But if you look there, on every occasion we've got a single-born animal cutting more wool than a twin-born animal. Pretty much for every sire, the singles cut more than the twins. We have one here where it swapped around, but generally you can see the singles are cutting more wool, and so we have to be careful when we're out there selecting animals. If we just select on fleece weight, for example, we need to make sure we're not just selecting on, we're not just selecting singles. So that's one thing to watch. And it kind of builds up. Fibre diameter goes the other way. Single born animals are actually finer, and this is all about their secondary follicle development. And so twins are actually stronger in micron than the singles across all of those sire groups. And so again, you're now saying, right, my twins are a little bit stronger and they're cutting a bit less wool. So if we go in there and we just say we're going to select all the heavy cutting fine animals, we will inadvertently select a lot of single born animals and be culling twins. So have to be careful how we use data. Same thing with Wrinkle. We've got a lot of people moving towards non-mules these days. Again, single-born animals tend to be more wrinkly. So this sort of goes in your favor. If you select for plainer animals, you'll select more twins. But the point of those three graphs really is that what you see isn't always what you get. You have to make sure when we start to use data and use eID to collect that data, that we're making sure we collect enough information to make good decisions. And that means we need to know a bit about that animal before we get it into that selection mode. So putting an eID tag in when an animal's 12 months old or when it's been weaned, you're missing a lot of the opportunity because you can't correct for this single twin effect. And so every time we're selecting animals, we know that we've got the phenotype that we can measure or view, but it's made up of genetics and environment, and the environment bit is bigger than genetics, and we need to be trying to get at the genetics, and that's why we need to make sure we've got some of that baseline information on those animals to so that we can then correct for that if we are measuring stuff. So that's sort of some of the measurement traits, and there's a few more here as well. We did some work with Renotech data and had to look through how visual scores look for twins versus singles as well. The Merino Lifetime Productivity Project has been doing a bit of this as well. And across all circumstances, a disproportionate number of twins get culled if you don't allow for that properly. If you look down this list, there's a heap of information there. They're lighter. The twins are lighter at weaning and hog-up weight. They're stronger in the wool. They're finer. They're cutting less wool, shorter in the staple, lower luster, lower crimp frequency, lower crimp definition, drier wool, lower, like everything kind of just moves against the twin. And so we have to be careful when we're running in there and making selection decisions that we're not burning all those twins. So and it's even worse for twins from two-tooth ewes. It actually gets worse than that. So lots of opportunity to use eID to make much better decision with the ewes with our ewes selection. One way you can use this, if you do record that information, is just when you are classing those animals visually, or you're getting someone to do that, make sure you separate them out into their groups: singles from maidens, twins from maidens, singles from mixed age, twins from mixed age, because they will all look differently, and it won't all be due to some of that will be due to their genetics, and some will be just due to the fact that that's how they were born. So I just really want to overemphasize the fact that if you miss the information, that life data at tailing, when you can actually putting a tag in their ear and you can record whether they're single and twin born, whether out of a mixed age ewe or a two-tooth ewe or a maiden ewe, or anything else that happens at that time, you get that in then, you've always can use that to correct your information. But if you don't get it at tailing, you'll never get it. So in terms of what that looks like, capturing that data, obviously you need to be scanning for singles and twins to start with in terms of pregnancy scanning, and then lamb them in those single and twin groups, and quite a few people will be doing that. And then you either keep a record of the tag sequence that goes into each of those groups, or you record them as you go. Ideally, you can if you're doing a twin mob, you can just have it on repeat and enter all that information as you go. And you can collect other data at the same time. But that is a key thing to do, and we need to be doing that at tailing so we can then correct it later on. Then what we do is, rather than looking at that fleece weight or the micron or the weaning weight or the post-weaning weight or whatever is important to you, or the condition score, we can actually correct that for single and twin. We've built this little tool that we do that internally, but you can get anyone with a few stats that you can correct it for, and that's where the industry needs to go. We need to be making sure that we're not using just that raw data. We can actually correct it for some of that single twin effect. I guess if we just a couple of examples to finish off with. This is a flock in New Zealand, and I guess the beauty of eID is you can bring time points together. So in this case, they've been classed as either black tag, which is sort of the off-type generals or royals, and the royals are the better ones. So that's been done at one point. That's all been recorded against the eID tag or onto the box. Some other point they were fleece weighed. Some other point we got that wool then got sent away, got a micron test on it, and then that same sheep came through the scanning cradle. So all of a sudden you build this big profile of these animals because you've got eID in their ear and you're using it well. Those 4 different time points, there's no way you can kind of do that any other way than, well, I guess they could read visual tags, but eID makes this kind of thing very, very easy. What it quickly shows is that by selecting animals well and selecting the right type, in this case, they would cut the same amount of wool at the same micron, but scanned 37% more as a 2-year-old. So a big lift by using the information well. Another example that I'll finish on is, again, looking at going into your flock and working out those that scanned as a 2-year-old, if they scanned single in this flock, they scan 135% in that next mating. If they scan twins as a maiden, they scan 171 in that next mating. So things like that, understanding what's going on in your flock can be really powerful. And then you can always be selecting out those animals and using that data to make a good selection decision. I'll wrap it up there. That's my details if you want to get some more information.
Thanks, Mark, for sharing your experience and expertise with us today.